I see Milton has joined. Hi, Milton.
Hi, can
Hi.
you
Is
hear
your
me?
video on? Oh, there you are.
Yes, I see you.
Oh, wonderful. All right, we still got some time.
Okay, let me put in. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
It's
hear
better.
you.
Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's even better. Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, Milton. Oh my goodness.
Hi.
Oh, it's so great to see you. Yeah, we got a couple of minutes, but I thought we could
Uh-huh.
just kind of let people, just maybe have some light chatter before we really kick off.
Uh-huh.
Um,
I hope
yeah.
you don't mind. I'm just lying down because I had somewhat of a busy day, with my groups and stuff. Yeah.
That's
So
that's
I,
okay.
I'm well rested and yeah. So I'm just trying to rest before after my interview with you. I have to wait until I go to my 12 step meeting at 7 o'clock. And then after that, meet my sponsor at 8:30 online. So, after this, I could just, I could just be a little bum in my house and put on my sweater and stuff like that. Take on my sweater and just be a bum in my house, but be comfortable, you know?
Love it. Love it. I
Yeah.
know, but I was like a bum with this lovely sweater that you got on. I was like,
Thank you.
I
Thank
mean,
you.
it's
I have to
it's
look presentable, you know what I mean? I had to look somewhat presentable. I didn't want to look like, one thing that I'm with my aide right now before she leaves, I don't want to put my aide on camera because, I have to respect her privacy. But,
yeah, no problem,
yeah,
no problem. Oh,
uh-huh,
I love it. I love it. We have some people joining us. I see Nadav is here. Let's see who's another person. Oh, actually, I think that's I'm just posting our live stream
uh-huh.
with yeah, so folks can watch. But I'm posting it on Facebook. My goodness, I'm so excited to chat with you.
Likewise.
Um,
Yeah.
this is gonna be really great, Milton. Let's see. Yes, here I'm posting it on
Look it up.
Facebook. I think I'll see if I can post it elsewhere. I was gonna say, how's the weather in New York right now?
Um, it's a mix because this morning I woke up and it was like very breezy and windy, but like
Okay.
then there's peaks of sun coming out, so it's like very unstable. Like the weather's unstable like that. A couple of days ago on Columbus Day weekend, it was like rainy and shoddy and drizzly
Hmm.
and stuff like that. But we needed the rain according to the reservoirs over here. So,
Oh
uh-huh.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. It just rained here in LA too. I feel like that was yeah. Oof. I mean, we definitely need the rain, especially since last year it was just like scary as far as the
Uh-huh.
fires go. So
Right. Yeah.
one of those things. Um, but yeah, I'll let some more folks kind of get in.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, oh, Nadav. I'm like, who do I know this person? I love Oh, very exciting. I'm so excited to see folks. And also feel free for as folks are kind of tuning in, to even type in your questions, if you have any, as far as our conversation goes. Um, I'm just so excited, Milton. This is like,
Right.
and it was, can I say it was also
And
really
you haven't
cool
seen
reading
you
your
haven't
full
seen
bio.
me actually you haven't really seen me since the last year at the extravaganza picnic.
Well, no, I saw you at the latex ball briefly
I said,
this
oh
year.
that's right. My bad. I thought that
Yeah, yeah.
I did see you. That's right. You were just starting and yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of
You're right.
zoomed in. I
I
was kind of
forgot.
going, I know. It was so short-lived. It was like, yeah, just
That's right.
like,
I guess I was in the moment too because I was walking that night too, and even though you know you could imagine how exhausted I was coming from dialysis and still planning to walk, and that took a lot of energy out of me. So I
mhm,
didn't. I knew didn't give my best performance out there, but it was my first performance in sobriety, so that meant a lot to me personally. And to
oh,
have
that's,
the whole crowd, give me a standing ovation and stuff like that was just impactful for me personally. It was my most perfect runway to date. I'm not going
That's
to plan on walking anytime soon because I got to prepare for my surgery coming up, for the kidney transplant. So those are just like, issues that I'm really, facing as an adult gay man in my 50s now. So,
mm,
so there's just things like I want to touch on, but also with the help of the viewers watching that they could get a little sense of inspiration and a sense of like, you know, this don't expect this to happen when you reach my age and still be, you know, BLBTQIA, but at the same time, uh, carve your own path, after there's certain
mm.
ask people to carve your own path. And, there's going to be suffering, there's going to be issues you deal with, but it's how you come and rise above it that matters the most, you know?
This is exactly the message that we need. And also perfect timing because it's 1 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
So I'm just going to give a little introduction. This is such a great segue.
Mhm.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sydney Ballou. I am the author behind Legends of Vogue, an incredible Substack where I share ballroom history, culture, and ballroom culture and history. And I'm so excited to be doing my first interview today with the icon, Milton Garcia Ninja. Milton is in New York, in Chelsea specifically. Chelsea Poppy. I love I love this pick too. And Milton is so many things. So I'm just gonna read some of your accolades. Milton Garcia Ninja is a cartoonist whose poetry, alongside his cartoon vignettes, are prolific in portraying aspects of his life and the lives of those around him. A member of the legendary House of Ninja and New York City's house ballroom scene, and deemed an icon within this creative community, Milton continues to inspire LGBTQ youth, young adults, and other communities with his take on beauty and the simplicity of life. Milton is an artist, cartoonist, voguer, dancer, choreographer, and public speaker who defies conventional truths in society and depicts life through his artwork, plus his other endeavors in an enjoyable yet powerful fashion. In August 2002, Milton was diagnosed HIV positive, and has never lost his commitment to enlightening everyone he knows and meets through his unique life experiences. His cartoon vignettes are what he calls sometimes a quote, pictorial diary of what inspires and drives him to better himself and others around him. Milton is a cartoonist among other talents who's committed to documenting his life experiences and moments. Some may take him for granted, but he never does. Now, one of the other things I also want to mention to everybody who's watching is Milton is an incredible mentor, somebody who means so much to me, personally, just as an elder and an icon in the ballroom scene who's always been so supportive, especially supportive of trans men like me and our trajectory, and really is inclusive. And, for me, as somebody who vogues old way performance, Milton's Vogue is also so iconic and incredibly inspiring. And I was obviously so honored to be able to interview you 3 years ago. God, was it 3 years ago? Or now,
Yeah.
to do an oral history with you. And so I'm just excited to be able to share you and your story with the world, Milton. So please welcome, welcome, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yeah, so like let's get into it, Milton. I mean, first of all, tell us how did you get into ballroom?
I first was introduced to ballroom by heading down to the Christopher Street Theater when it was decapitated and dilapidated and like looking like ruins, you know.
Yeah.
And that was back in 1984. And
Wow.
so that marks now about 30 or 40 years now since I've
Yeah.
been down there.
Yeah.
I basically go down there now that it's renovated and it's become more what's that state? What's that? What that term that's called? That is become more like
What, like
just
gentrified or just
gentrified. Thank you. That's the word
yeah.
I'm looking for. Gentrified, and that uh, I just occasionally go with other friends that are still at my age and we reminisce and speak and hang out with, the younger generation and just be nostalgic and talk about what we went through. And, they still play music down there and still have the elements of the old days. And if you just put on music and, that some of the kids would just be there, they're smoking and they're drinking and stuff like that openly in public like that. It's not
Mm,
that like it's not like that now because of the laws and stuff like that. But back then it was such an open atmosphere of, of real diversity and inclusion in terms of,
mm,
and that's what welcomed me when I walked in there in 1984. And I thought gay men, birth twins jumping double dutch, and that's when I knew that, oh, this is paradise. Like, wow, like these are people that look like me, that act like me. These are people that I can, establish, long-term relationships with, you know.
mm,
And at that time, I was in the closet, so it was like, it was difficult for me to really express myself when I was still living at home with my family, you know. So,
mm,
but that was a very healthy outlet and escape at the time. And of course, the negative was that it was exposure to drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. But that didn't involve me until later on in my life, you know.
gotcha.
So, but it was
But
an
yeah, the
atmosphere
peers
that you
is,
could hang out all night.
uh,
If you had money and you could walk up and down Pacific Street and go to the delicatessen and buy dinner and buy pizza and all that stuff. And
mm,
most of all, it gave an opportunity for my trans brothers and sisters to, basically live the law of the land, and especially
mm,
my trans sisters that were really going through a lot of stuff and having to prostitute and do sex work to
mm,
survive. And, those were some issues. I was fortunately not involved in that, but I
yeah.
felt like I had to be an ally as part of the community. So even though I'm a gay man and I feel very connected to all aspects of my community, but I have a certain affinity and affection through the ballroom scene for my trans brothers and sisters because if it wasn't for them, there would be no current ballroom scene.
Ah, Milton, you've said so much, and I appreciate you putting that stamp on it. It's true, sometimes people forget that where the culture comes from. So thank you so much for that reminder.
Hmm.
So back in the 80s, I mean, you were painting this picture, which I think a lot of us have seen in Paris is Burning and, depictions obviously in Pose.
Hmm.
Just that it was such a different world back then. Can I ask you, how did you get into voguing? Like, were you voguing back then or
I was still voguing back then. I learned from the best, of course.
who
Um,
were your teachers?
my founder of the House of Ninja, Willie Ninja, was my primary mentor. And then I learned from the likes of C.D. St. Laurent, who's no longer with us, Ronald LeMay,
Mm,
um, um, and Damien Ultra, who's now my brother, and he's still with us.
mm,
And there are people like he was the first person I battled. Back in my first ball was at the House of Adonis Ball back in Midtown 43, and that's when I won. And I remember distinctly he was standing with his arms folded in the back on the side of the DJ booth because it was a large box, a DJ booth, and the DJ
mhm,
was on top, and he was like watching me and after I won, and I remember never forget, I wore like a plaid, excuse me, not a plaid. I wore like a striped shirt, red and white, that resembles like a sailor's shirt, right? But in
yeah.
red and white, like striped, right, from left to right. And I wore black cargo pants and sneakers, and I had my glasses on. So when initially Selvin and Penny Chanel, I'll never forget these people. Kenny Chanel was the commentators at the time, and they called me Waldo because I look like Waldo, and I look like Waldo, and I was like, Waldo's got threat. Waldo, so that was my first category with pop, dip, and spin and the new wave. So that's when I'm
Mm,
legendary for new wave before I became old wave, and I was just like stretching on the floor, and I remember distinctly battling through it Revlon, and we couldn't take my stretch. I just kept stretching and clicking and stretching and circle
wow.
splits on the floor. And I was the Richards at the time. That was my first house. My first house was
Oh,
the
you're
house
in the
of
House of
Richards.
Richards. Oh my gosh,
Yes,
you're
I was.
well, wait, hold on. We gotta slow down because you're dropping so much knowledge. But wait,
Yes.
so what year was this, just so I know?
I'm sorry.
What year was this, just so I know?
1984.
84. Okay, wow. So it's really interesting to hear this was in 84 that you were already doing New Way. But just to
Uh-huh.
catch people up, for folks who are watching, obviously, Old Ways, the original style of voguing that uses
Uh-huh.
geometry, poses, breakdancing, Egyptian hieroglyphics. I mean, so many different inspirations. And all those people you mentioned are true icons, really pioneers of the craft. Ronald LeMay, Stevie Saint Laurent, Damien, who's now in Ebony, but originally from
Uh-huh.
Omni.
Hmm.
And wait, did you mentioned maybe one more person? Obviously Willie
I
Ninja,
yes.
too, who was one of your mentors.
Hmm.
And that is so amazing to hear that at that ball in '84, you were, and when you say Stuart Revlon, do you mean Stuart Ebony today?
I do.
Like,
Yes, I do. Yes, I
Stuart
do.
used to Vogue. He did not
Yes, he
share this
did.
with
And
me because
we battled, and then
love that.
he was just like so overwhelmed. Like he was like, "Who is Waldo? Like who is?" They couldn't tell. They didn't know I'm Milton Richards. They just said Waldo. So as soon as he just walked off the runway, I'll never forget. He walked off the runway, and he was just like, "Give the trophy to this child," because he's just like, "I can't take him. Give the trophy to him." So it was
Oh
like
my
an instant
God,
win,
I love
and it
that.
was $100 casting trophy. I'll never forget it. You
Which is
know,
a
and
lot in 1984. That's a lot of money.
uh-huh. So after I won, I won, and I was about to walk over to the area where Damien was standing, and he was like, I'm going to keep my eye on you. You're my answer. When he said you're my answer, that meant that you could be my potential rival on the runway. And for years after that, it was always a battle that always battled between him and me, him and me, him and me. But there was all,
Mm.
I should also mention that back then, there was a real sense of camaraderie. You know what I mean? In the sense that if I won over him, I was man enough he was man enough to come over to me and congratulate me and shake my hand. But he was
Wow.
also like, okay, I'll get you next time. And then almost like another ball, if he won over me, I would do
Mhm.
the same. So we've always
Wow.
had this camaraderie and this mutual respect for each other's craft, that to this day we admire and acknowledge to each other. And that's
Oh,
lacking in the current scene today,
that's
and I just wanted to mention that. Yeah.
oh,
Uh-huh.
thank you for saying that, Milton. That's
Uh-huh.
really good to hear. It's so interesting you say it too, because I remember when I spoke to Julian de la Blanca,
Uh-huh.
he told me the best way to learn was when somebody who was better than you would serve you in the club. That
Uh-huh.
actually people wanted to battle each other because this is how they learn, and they'll bring out the best parts of you.
And I should mention Julia de la Blanca was a former Richard too. Hmm.
Oh wow. So wait, tell me
Yes.
about the House of Richards, because I've always heard about the House of Richards, but I don't know too much.
Well, House of Riches was primarily a Jersey-based house from New Jersey. And when
Mm.
I was in the house, there was Mother Taraji, who's still with us, and Father Richard Richards, who's still with us. But and they're in contact. And I was in the house with the famous Leah Richards, who was infamous for that Catwoman presentation. You know,
Oh,
and
wait. What was the Catwoman presentation that Leah Richards did?
That was in a ball in New York. I remember that much. I'm
Okay.
sure that they have it on film somewhere, but I'll speak to Lee. I'm sure that he has that footage as well. Um,
Got you.
and that was a Jersey-based house, and when they saw me perform, and I became a witness, and they wanted me to become like the father of the New York City chapter. And
Mm.
after the death of Angel Vistaya Richards, who was fantastic. He was an amazing designer's delight. That man could just create outfits out of nowhere. So I came from that era where there was a lot of hype creativity, and I had the knowledge and the pleasure of being in the House of Pendarvis with Avis when he was alive. And there was a lot of motherly figures that I was raised around in ballroom culture that no longer exists. So gone are the days with Pepper and Paris and stuff. But I consider them the visionaries because if it wasn't for them, they were the pioneers that forged my path in my
Mm.
direction in ballroom.
Wow. So that's amazing. Especially that, I mean, all these names that you're dropping of people who we know are so fundamental to the culture. Can you
Mhm.
tell me what it was like? I mean, well, Avis, what was she like as a person, and what was it like to be a Pendarvis? When were you a Pendarvis?
I was a Pendaris with Luna Luis Ortiz Khan, and she was a very she was large, right? I'll say that
Mhm,
she was large. She was she was a transgender female, right?
mhm,
And she had the innate ability to just whip up and create outfits out of scratch,
mm,
and she would walk on the runway and a hat would become a skirt, and he would turn this hat into a purse and things like that. So it was like
mhm,
this complete transformation of like one piece accessory to another accessory, and those were the moments that made me feel so alive to be part of this community of so many LGBT people of color that
mhm,
before it blew out in social media worldwide, that it was just exclusively for us and by us, and it
mm.
was the only atmosphere where I could escape and be my authentic self and be my creative self without the pressures of the world at the time, including the
Mm.
HIV/AIDS and all epidemic and all that stuff. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Ballroom is really a refuge in so many ways. Can
Hmm.
you tell me, especially because, we're so lucky to have you as one of our
Thank
elders who's
you.
with us. I often say, that obviously there's a whole generation of people who would be here, so many of the names even that you mentioned already,
Mhm.
if it wasn't for that disease. I mean, what was it like to be in ballroom when HIV and AIDS first hit?
I can tell you because I was diagnosed in August of 1992. And
Mm,
there was a moment in my life where I wasn't diagnosed with HIV. I had full blown AIDS, and because of my sexual promiscuity and and being promiscuous in my adolescence, I contracted HIV in August of 1992, and there were moments at that time in the culture and in society in general that it was frowned upon,
mm,
and people would there was a nickname for it. Like we would have our own ballroom nickname and we would call it Kitty. That was a
mhm,
nickname. And we would call it Kitty. And the people would come around each other in ballroom and say, "Oh, don't go near that bush cream. He has titty," meaning that that person contracted HIV and AIDS. So back then there was still the stigma and it was really hyper, forward, it was really
mm,
bad. Like, there were people like I remember vividly when I was in the House of Apex, there were moments when we had our house meeting, and during that time of HIV and AIDS and doing HIV prevention to the ballroom community, there were kids that were scared to touch me because they were like, wow, like, let me give him a paper plate and a napkin and a plastic fork because they didn't even want to touch me, and I'm doing HIV prevention with them, as an
mm,
open HIV positive person. So, it made me realize the frailty of my life, and it made me realize that I had to take a step back away from ballroom and become not only my own self advocate and fight for my medications and fight for what I needed to do, but also to fight for other people because now
mm,
there's this general misconception that, oh, you have HIV, oh, I could just take the pills and I'll be fine. But no, they're not thinking about the real, the real consequences behind it. Because if you do, you have to
mm,
consider how it's going to affect your job, how it's going to affect your family, and your whole circle of life and influence is impacted by that one simple motion. That's not one simple thing, and how that
right,
is going to affect the course of your life.
right.
So back when it was called Kitty, there were moments that people were like so destructive and rude to each other and things like that. And there was just like an onset of people just dying left and right and stuff like that.
Mm,
And there were moments even when there was gay pride that they used to have the moments of silence. We don't have that anymore because it's become so gentrified in the community that it's like,
mm,
oh, well, they could just take pills and stuff like that, and you can live a longer, healthier life now that you have the medications. But you're not thinking about the onset consequences of that behavior,
right, right,
later on.
right. Well, wow. Also, that must have been so brave to be out in 1992, like you said. Can I ask you, you know, that how did you make that decision to be out about your status? Because I mean, as you mentioned, like I noticed when I interviewed a number of people, they talked about, I mean, Grandfather Hector talked about that too when I
Mm,
interviewed him back in 2016, that, it was this thing of people were passing away. Everybody knows what's going on in Ballroom, but nobody was saying anything.
mhm.
Um, so how did you make that decision to just be out about your status in 1992?
When I joined the House of Latex, this was after I left. I was a House of Latex member. Then I was briefly an extraordinaire. That's my history. I'm just basically speaking my history in ballroom from house to house. So I was a Richards, then I was an extraordinaire, then I was a Pendarvis. Then after the House of Pendarvis, I started doing volunteer work with Gay Men's Health Crisis, and that's when I was introduced to the late Albert Santana Ibisu, who was Mother Latex at the time, and became a member of the House of Latex. And I believe that was deemed legendary as a member of the House of Latex before he passed away. So even
Mm,
though Albert passed away from kidney complications, how ironic, because now I'm dealing with kidney disease as well. And
mm,
dialysis 3 days a week as a result of my drug use. And that happened later on in my life. But after I became a latex, the House of Latex folded as a result of funding issues from the government and stuff. And Luna still proudly, maintains the House of Latex project, but the House of Latex as a house closed. And it led me to drug use, and it led me to a lot of feelings of feeling less than and less worthy, and to have ballroom people come up to me and say, he's still here. When is he going to die? Like real shady stuff like that, that really made me feel like, no, I'm going to be better than this. And even though there are some people in the ballroom scene that basically wanted me dead, I was like, no, I'm not going down like this.
mm.
And the best part of living my life out is not to just promote a sense of revenge, but promote a sense of like, I got this, and I'm going to live my life to the best of my ability and give the potential to other people that are suffering, that are in silence, and they don't have to suffer in silence anymore.
Amazing, amazing. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing I want to go back to, because you said in 92 you joined the House of Latex. And
Mm-hmm.
again, for so many people who maybe aren't aware, basically in the late 80s, well, you mentioned Gay Men's Health Crisis. They were basically an organization founded by Larry Kramer. There's obviously the documentary How to Survive a Plague. I think it
Mm-hmm.
might still be on Netflix. Where basically, during the AIDS crisis, people were trying to figure out how to do outreach, and like to, just do something around research and trying to get support for people living with HIV and AIDS. And I know that obviously with GMHC, they were very white. And so they were trying to figure out how to reach Black and Latino communities to do outreach.
Mm-hmm.
So they started working with the ball scene. And Arbert, as you mentioned, who had passed, he was kind of the bridge to be able to do that. And they had the idea, because I know from my research, they first started with they would do tables at the balls, and they'd have
Mm-hmm.
info and condoms. And I heard, people would take the condoms, they would never take the info. And then finally, I forget who it was, maybe it was Arbert, who said, you guys should start a house so that you could do a ball. And so they obviously created the House of Latex.
Mm-hmm.
And it's good to hear that, and then for folks who may have heard of the latex ball, right, which is the biggest ball in New York City, it started as basically a way to do outreach around HIV testing, prevention, to get people resources, access to housing, other sorts of sources of support. And it's amazing to hear that that at least was like a first place for you to feel comfortable um, in talking about your status and being out about that. Now I also want to go back to, because the complexity which you had just described
Mm-hmm.
about being in ballroom, and well, one, just having things like drugs around, and two, also, I think what's tough for people, especially people who are outside of ballroom, to know is that ballroom has both beauty, creativity, really amazing things, and also some shadows, and some things where, you'll hear nasty remarks from people like that who might say something to you to try and kill your confidence or dim your light.
Hmm.
And I know for myself, I've also had to deal with, a fair share of people trying to dim my light in certain ways. So it's really, I appreciate you naming that and also talking about how you use that as fire, fuel for your fire to
Hmm.
keep going and to speak up on that. So thank you so much for saying that, Milton.
Hmm.
It means a lot. And I say it just because, I think sometimes people ask me this question, is ballroom a safe space? You know? And I feel like, I'd be curious, how do you see that? I have a lot of thoughts on that, but I feel like you've kind of hinted at different ways of looking at that question.
Are you speaking in terms of ballroom now, in the generation now, or how it's
Yeah,
always
we could say,
perceived now?
I mean, we could say now, we could say, actually, I want to hear both back
Uh
then
huh.
and also now, because I could see both sides of the equation, based on
Uh
what you
huh.
said.
um, in terms of ballroom back then, there was such a camaraderie, and I think there still is between the old elder members of the houses, and that I try to maintain that in the friendships that I have with different people in different houses, the elders in different houses, and I still believe that even though some of us may not be able to walk as much as we'd like to or perform as much as we'd like to, the presence of being an elder in every house is vitally important to maintaining the structure of the house ball community now more than ever before. And with this current quote unquote administration, that's happening right now, it is more vital and important for us as for me as a gay man, as a butch queen in the ballroom scene, to be an ally for the trans community. It is without a doubt, such an important part of my process, and to really respect, whoever is in transition and who's post transition, their lives, and that their lives matter as well. Trans lives matter as well as Black lives matter, as well as Hispanic lives matter, as well as, you know, gay people's lives matter, you know.
Mm,
So always been very open minded and vulnerable to accepting all of those aspects of community. And I've always seen myself as a chameleon and can adapt to various communities and basically feel like I'm a part of every community that I choose to be a part of. You know what I mean? And I
yeah.
have to say, living in Chelsea here, it's really motivated me to really keep intact of my personal beliefs of being that I've always been ballroom ride or die. And that even though I live in this neighborhood with this predominantly gay white men, I still walk the streets with confidence, knowing I'm proud to be a gay Latino man in ballroom and still be proud of my process of getting older and aging as a gay man, Latino man. Because there are other people that didn't live to be my age.
Mm,
Let's be frank. There are a lot of people that haven't lived to have the experience of getting older, and it's a direct slap in the face that a lot of our dolls are dying and they're like dying without reason, and so when I've seen most of these girls develop into full womanhood, and in the case of yourself and other trans men, develop into full masculine men, and it is a privilege and it's an honor for me to witness that in my lifetime, and that I
mm.
want to be able to still be part of their process of developing and evolving to the men and women they're becoming in the future.
Oh, thank you so much for saying that, Milton. That means the world, to know that we have your allyship and your support.
Yeah.
Because it is, I mean, literally every day there's like a new headline of just doomsday from this administration. So, yes, I appreciate that reminder of, that ballroom is this, kind of place where we can be ourselves and where we can meet up. And then there's also the reality of just human nature. You're going to have sometimes either rivalries or people going through their own things that can affect you on a person person to person basis, but just the knowing that to have the strength to keep going. I mean, even just hearing your story, from 92, especially when there was no cure back then. I mean,
Uh-huh.
I cannot imagine just how you felt back then, Because can
I
I ask
felt,
back
yes,
yeah.
go ahead.
Well,
Yes, go
well,
ahead.
well, oh no, you were about to say, but I wanted to know how you got the strength in yourself to just keep going.
There were moments when I was the latex that I was hospitalized. And there were moments in which very few people in Ballroom actually visited me. But there were moments that I was seen by various members of the House of Latex that were latexes at the time, including Arthur, who passed away. And to have him pass away, really devastated me. And it led me to my personal drug use outside of the community. And I stepped outside of the community to deal with my realities of living with this disease that has no cure and killing myself. I just found myself killing myself and feel like, nobody's going to care and letting the drug, this infamous drug that I now proudly am clean and sober from it for now 314 days. And I'm doing so well that, I have a sponsor and it's through the help of organizations like Ballroom Repair that have been a major instrumental force in keeping my sobriety intact. But I'm doing the work as well, and they recognize that and respect that. So in terms of back then and now, ballroom will always be a safe space, and it depends on how you see it and how you put your mind to it and how you apply it. You know what I mean? If you
Yeah.
feel like, you want to be a positive influence to others, including young people and into the older generation, then that's my motive that to stay in ballroom. And I've always been like a part of one of the most creative forces in ballroom, and that I want to maintain that. And the level of creativity astounds me. And it just astounds me and it motivates me when I do my artwork and stuff like that. And creating pieces for members in and out of ballroom that make me feel like, I am, evolving into this person that I don't have to just depend on my blogging career, my performance career, and become more relevant in
Yeah.
community now in this day and age.
Ah, Milton, this is so
Yeah.
great, and also a wonderful segue to. First of all, thank you so much
Mhm.
for this, and second of all, this is a great way for us to talk about your incredible body of work because
Mhm.
that was truly one of the things I really wanted to highlight. I mean, beyond you, obviously having this incredible ballroom voguing career on the runway, one of the
Mhm.
things you're most known for is your beautiful cartoons
Mhm.
that, you're somebody who obviously is a multifaceted artist who is able to really capture specific moments in ballroom history. I mean, I obviously shared a number of your works on social media and on my Substack.
Mhm.
And I also have to mention, I'll have to take a photo of the image that you also made of me,
Uh-huh.
because I remember you made this beautiful cartoon drawing. Well, actually, you made two. There's one more recently, but the one that you
Yeah.
made back in 2019 when I won a grand prize for Old Way performance at the Latex Ball.
Mhm.
It was just such an honor. It was also so surprising because I obviously didn't know that you made this beautiful drawing of me, and then I remember you were like, "Oh, I made this for you," and I was like, "Oh my gosh," and it feels so special. I mean, especially in today's day and age with AI, to
Mhm.
have somebody who, this like human drawn moment that's captured, and especially for you as somebody from the community who's documented the community, can you tell me how you got into drawing cartoons like that?
Well, I've always had the initiated talent since I was six, and when I was so young. And there were moments like even when I was implying, I've always had the natural ability to, do artwork and stuff like that in regular school and public school and stuff. And even when I was like on the floor drawing or, there were moments that I was just doing, like a new way pose at 7 or 8 years old. And I'm like, look, mommy, I'm a pretzel, you know? And she would be at that time, she didn't even notice. She was just like, oh, that's nice, honey. That's like, even with my artwork, she would be, oh, that's so nice, Milton. I'm Sue Milton. So my father's name is Milton Sr. and I'm Milton Jr. So in Spanish, I'm Mitito, Little Milton, you know?
Mm,
So I've always been, I always will be Mitito, Little Milton, you know? So,
mm.
yeah, and I'm 55, so go figure. So, but, I've had the talent and the natural ability since I was 6, and my parents fortunately were very supportive of my abilities. And I got into the High School of Art and Design, which is
Mm,
Calvin Klein's alma mater, and it's still there on 57th and Second Avenue, that high school, which you
mm,
needed a portfolio and an essay and things like that to get in because it's a specialized high school. And I'm sure they still have that. And I got in. And my major was illustration. And then, but
mm,
in that school, I was exposed to all aspects of art, with fashion illustration, um, you know, uh, ink and ink work and, art, airbrushing, all of these things that really motivated me to, divulge my ability to create, But now when, on the onset of HIV and AIDS, when I got sick, I first remember started drawing the doctors and the nurses when I was sick in the hospital. And,
mm.
the nurses tend to gossip every time they change shifts. And they were like, Mr. Garcia, do me. Mr. Garcia, do me. Look at me. Mr. Garcia, do me. And you know, it became like rumors. And then the rumors became true. And people started coming up to me during their shifts and saying, Mr. Garcia, can you draw a cartoon of me? And I started drawing the chaplains and the doctors and the nurses because I was unsure about whether I was going to live or die, you know? So that's what started my fuel, my career in terms of my artwork, in terms specifically my cartoons. And once I started getting better and dealing with my, issues around my health with HIV, I'm still using that as a platform to document people in ballroom now,
Mm,
including the people that have passed away. So it's just like my way of recognizing their presence in my life, whether they passed or they're still with us, and acknowledge their influence in my life now. So when I contact them, this is the process. I contact the individual first before I create a piece,
mm.
in and out of ballroom. And they're like, I say, here's the cartoon. I'm going to make a cartoon of us. And this is the title. And I can't wait to finish it. And usually I create a piece and it finishes between 1 3 days, because I'm
Amazing.
diligent in making sure that I do the piece of work and get it ready for people to see it online. And then once it's
Yeah.
done, I send it to them. I send it to my post so everybody can see. And it's 3 dimensional. It's like a pop up art type of thing or situation. So, when they see it in person, as you know, it's like they go nuts. Like they're like, oh my God, you really captured me. And I cheat, I get the favorite pictures of them on Facebook and I save it on my phone. And that's how I get their likeness to be so realistic, and I
Mm.
create it in a cartoon fashion. That's my secret,
Oh,
that's
I love
my
that.
secret. And then,
I
I
know.
just get on Google and just like, ask some questions and, ask them what their favorite colors are and things like that and tailor it so that way it's personal to them, you know?
Ah, that is so cool. Yeah, no, I have to admit, because you also made one of me, Crystal, and Marlo LaBeija recently, which I really
Uh-huh.
appreciated as part of like Legends of Vogue. So
Uh-huh.
it's such an honor to be part of your part of your collection, I'll just say, just knowing that that I was documented by the great Milton Garcia Ninja. It's so very cool. Um,
And I feel like this is another aspect of my creativity that I get like in the eventuality that I pass, and I know I will pass, but I'm not going to pass away anytime soon. That's for sure. But I know that I want to leave a legacy behind that's not just legendary performance. I want to leave a legacy that's worthwhile, and people are already starting to call me and tell me like, you're the Pablo Picasso of ballroom. Like people are giving me all of these like crazy nicknames and stuff like that. And I feel like first of all, I deserve those little titles because, I feel like I'm a person, my talent speaks for itself and I'm worth it. And but
Mm,
most of all, I get a sensation of I do this work free, you know what I mean? And it was the late Wanalua. I will never forget when I made a cartoon for the late Wanalua St. Laurent,
mm,
who died. I never got to give him his cartoon. And he mentioned to me, Milton, this is a beautiful piece of artwork, but why are you charging me for this gift? Aren't gifts supposed to be given for free? And that's when that was the light in the click that hit in my head. And I was like, he's right. So since then, since his passing, I started to, um, brand myself as Milton Garcia Ninja. And, hopefully I could open up, vitalize my website, which I'm
mhm,
calling Kamikaze Cartoons NYC,
mhm,
and in the memory of the House of Ninja. And just do what I gotta do, just stay clean and sober and utilize this artwork as another outlet for my creativity to shine. And I may not be able to walk as much as I'd like to when I can, but
mhm,
just to have that other presence of my possibility of giving somebody a piece of artwork that they can, really enjoy and have for years. I'm talking years. People have my artwork for years, and I see the evolution of my work evolving, and the
mm.
ideas are reconstructing, and the ideas are just like, I have a habit of having a piece of paper and a pencil next to my dresser at night. So when I wake up and go to the bathroom or whatever, and I have an idea and it hits me, I write that idea down because I'm an older person. So I have those what my ex used to call senior moments.
Mm.
so
Gosh,
so it's
yeah,
like
you gotta
so it's
capture the moment while you can. I love that.
exactly. But once I look at the title, I know exactly what I create and I know
Mm.
exactly what colors I have to use. And by the end I finish, it is exactly what I envisioned in my imagination.
Wow. Because, and you mentioned obviously that you drew inspiration from fashion drawings, from, are there, I mean, you obviously mentioned Picasso, but are there other inspirations for your work? Like, when you think about where your work sits or, when you first started doing cartoons, was there someone who kind of came to mind?
There are many artists that come to mind, but they have certain influences that may not really show up in my cartoons. But they were artists like Andy Warhol and Basquiat and Keith Haring, who I had the honor of seeing him actually paint that second floor bathroom at the center, which is now a state. You
Yeah,
know,
this is at the LGBT Center in New
uh
York on
huh,
13th
and
Street. Yes,
and
there's that
stuff.
incredible space. Wow.
and Roy Lichtenstein and people like that, as well as like the greats, the Picassos, the Michelangelos, and all that I learned in high school and in college. So it was like,
Mm,
I when I fused my direction into cartooning, I was thinking a lot of about Hirschfeld and men like that created cartoons for parties and
mhm,
places like that in New York City, and they inspired me. And now currently, Glenn Hansen, who's
mm.
amazing. He's one of my dear inspirations. Probably doesn't know that, but he's going to know it now. And Alvaro Extravaganza. Yes,
Yeah, Alvar is another ballroom.
he's
Yes, another
he is
ballroom
just one of my, and
artist.
he knows it. He knows it. And when I created a cartoon of us, he was just moved to tears, and to
Oh,
know that these are people that are my muses and my
mhm,
inspiration, that are non-musical and my inspiration. My musical giants were Prince before he died, and he was my huge inspiration. So, well, naturally, when he died, I went through it, but he still lives on through my life. He still lives on, and his his ethics, his work ethic is imprinted in when I create and when I live my life.
that's so amazing, Milton. And
Mhm.
I was gonna say, because like when I see your work, I love that, it's you really capture the moments of joy, and also just the expressiveness of people. Like I love even in my cartoon, and I'll definitely share it on the Substack. Like it's I don't know, it's really cool because I think sometimes when you're on this path, you're not like always stopping to reflect about the moment. And I feel like
Mhm.
through your artwork, you really are able to get people to see just, like where they are in their journey in a way. So it's very, very beautiful that you're able to do that.
Thank you.
Um,
I also like to feel that, if I capture that moment, I want them to remember the value of their presence in my life, So there are a lot of our brothers and trans brothers and sisters that sometimes don't feel like they're valued or appreciated. But I want to let them know that when I create pieces of artwork for anybody, gay, BLBC, or straight or whatever, that they're valued in my life in one shape or form. So when I pass on, that I have a legacy that I live and that they have a piece of artwork that I created that they could remember me by. I don't want any tears when I pass. I would just like people to remember the presence that I was in their life and how much I meant to them.
ah, and you mean so much to us, Milton. You'll be here.
Yeah.
You'll
Uh-huh.
continue to be here, and I mean, it just even hearing your story of how much you've overcome and how you've come out on the other side. I mean, even you talking about your recovery and how much that obviously has brought you to this other level. It's just honestly, it's so inspiring for so many people, myself included. So I want to say just like, thank you for being a beacon in all these different ways. Um,
Yeah.
I wanted to, because we have maybe about 15 more minutes, see if there are any
Mhm.
questions. I see we have oh, I'm gonna butcher your name
My
again.
life is an open book, so if that, I just don't want to answer any questions that may be like, you know, uh, that may be offensive to people. I won't
For
answer
sure.
any questions like that, of course. But like, I will answer questions because my life is an open book. There's nothing that I don't hide or not. It's nothing that I can't talk about.
Okay, yeah, for sure. And obviously, you don't have to answer. If
Uh-huh.
anybody who's watching, we have a couple of people tuned in. If anybody has any questions, we can definitely chat about them. But maybe as that's kind of starting to fill up, yeah, let's see. Ooh, there's so much. I mean, let's see, Milton. Is there anything else that you wanted to? Because we covered a lot of territory. Obviously, you talked about your ballroom history. I mean, obviously, it sounds like first even with from Richards to Pendarvis to Latex, then back to Ninja. How did you get back in the House of Ninja? And can you tell us what it was like to work with Lily?
Oh, okay. Now I should say that when before I became a ninja, there were moments that a house ninja was doing shows and doing I remember this show called East is Red, and it was out at the dance theater workshop. And I went with the late grandfather Hector Extravaganza. He was my person that I was my first one, and
Mm,
we saw the show, and the show was amazing. And basically, it was some members of the House of Ninja that performed a skit, and it was like a skit or like a play that was
mm,
based on like Chinese martial arts and things of that nature which Willie was very obsessed over in a good way, and that's why he formed the House of Ninja because he was always obsessed with Oriental and Chinese and Japanese culture, and that was the reason why he became that became the mother of the House of Ninja. And I was told recently that he was not the founder of the House of Ninja, and this is what I'm talking about. When I appreciate the history that Legends of Vogue is imparting because I found out that Sandy Apollonia Ninja was the founder of the House of Ninja. And
yeah, you
through,
said Sandy Apollonia, is that the name?
yes,
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 got it.
who was iconic for, female runway at the time. And, you saw a little clip of her walking models affecting Paris's journey. So,
And was
so
Sandy a femme queen or
yes, she
a
was.
cis woman?
She was
Oh, she was a femme
transgender.
queen.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so it's amazing how I'm still learning about the history of my house, being in this house for about 12 years now. And I became a ninja by attending the practices, more and more after the
Hmm.
house after the departure of the house of latex. And there were moments that, they gave me like a trial run to join the House of Ninja and
Hmm.
attend meetings, attend the practices and things like that, rehearsals and things like that. And
Hmm.
that I was like ninja by back then, there was like, if there was somebody like my gay son Daniel, he wants me to give him a shout out. So shout out to my son Daniel. He's
Thank
not a
you.
ninja, but he's a ninja by association, which means that back then in the day, if you were dating somebody, if you were a boyfriend or something, or girlfriend or something, and you were not necessarily a walker in the house of ninja, but you were ninja by association. So those little traditions I still keep to this day for myself,
Mm,
and that, so when I became a ninja, um, I remember that I had a meeting in my facility where I live, and they didn't have space in they didn't have a space in the dance studio. The dance studio was already rented by another group, another dance group, and everybody was meeting in front of the dance studio, and they were like, "We don't have a place to meet." So that
mm,
I suggested, come to my place where I live, and we have a large cafeteria, and we all met right then and there, and they went through the process, getting through security and stuff like that. And there were about a good 20, 25 members sitting in the cafeteria with me and my ex-boyfriend there. And
mm.
immediately, they asked me if I wanted to join the House of Winter, and I said yes. And I also I also was a little slick because I had my artwork for three people in the House of Ninja that I got to present. So it was like a nice foot in the door that I
I
got to
love
just
it.
give them three people, like three major people in the House of Ninja, Benny and Richard at the time, and my gay son
Mm.
Michael of cartoons. And that was like my little spiel to get into
Got
the
you.
House of
Yeah, yeah.
Ninja
You
even
kind of like
quicker.
sweeten the
Yeah,
deal a little bit with the
sweeten the
artwork.
pot. Yeah, and it
Yeah.
happened and it worked. And it's been now I've been I'm emperor now of the House in New York chapter for now about 12 years, you know?
Right.
And
Okay. So it's, yeah, more recent. That's wonderful.
yeah,
Wow. Um,
yeah.
Also, I just love that, you also talk so much about obviously mentorship and I'm so curious, Milton. You've obviously seen ballroom shift through so many decades,
Mm,
really. I mean, 84 is so early as far as like, ballroom history goes, just as far
mm.
as, people's involvement. Um, so I'm curious, what do you see as the future of ballroom? Where do you see it headed? Um, and even well, let's just start there, and then because I also do want to hear what are some things from back in the day that either you missed or that you would love to see again.
I'll start with the first question that you asked me. Where do I see it now? It's become so gentrified now with the onset of legendary impos, which I'm grateful that those existed, and I'm proud to be around that and to see that on television. But I kind of feel sad that it's not there still, and to have Pose having the first transgender cast, it was huge. It was like huge. And I was just really motivated to still participate in ballroom with the onset of those shows. But now that they've passed, all I have is the memories of those shows, and that
Mm,
all I could do is still imply my be relevant in ballroom without having the onset of those shows. And
mm,
where I see it going now, there's still gonna be shade, there's still gonna be drama, there's still gonna be girls trying you on the runway and stuff like that and things like that. But I would really like to see an evolution of ballroom heading going a little bit back to the basics,
mm,
in terms of having, categories like more creative categories come out, like Designers Delight and Hair Affair, which was these were categories that I came out in when I was back in '84. So
mm,
I would like to see more creativity instilled in these kids. I mean, not that there's not enough, because there certainly is enough now, but I would like to see that come back. I would like to see, grand prize and first place trophies reinstated again. So that way people don't,
mm,
so
yeah.
that way people don't feel like, I have to really get to the grand prize. And if I would do whatever it takes to get a grand prize trophy, I would like to see that kind of system reinstated again. So that way people don't walk out the runway feeling like if they're top that they're less than. And I would never want to anybody. Whenever I judge, I'm very fair. So I like to give everybody their chance because I really want to see the battles. I really want to
Yeah, I
see
know.
them work to get to the trophy. That's just my thinking. But at the same time,
Totally.
I also would like to, I should mention this as well, that I would like to see a lot more respect given not to just the trans community in ballroom, but also to the cisgender women in the community. And that's another thing that's being like overlooked, you know. And I feel that it's important that the women, although they are doing a lot of what they can, to show their presence in the community, as well as the trans men, as well as the trans women. Have they always been that way? I just feel like there should be more respect given to them and more categories or more events that cater to the respectability and the history that they have provided in ballroom.
That is such a
Yes.
mic drop moment, Milton. Yes. No,
Yeah.
it's true because, well, first of all, I love that you mentioned more creativity. I totally agree with you. I think when I look in the archive at some of these categories, Skirts Ahoy was one I talked too much on,
Mhm,
about. I
mhm,
feel like people were more playful, and it's like, yeah, ballroom's serious, the competition, you want to do well, but also there was a level of joy and levity,
mhm.
and also, can you explain what designer's delight is as a category?
Designers Delight with categories that were based on the creativity of creating an outfit from scratch. You know,
Mhm.
so there are people like the late Angel Viscaya Richards, who was and Avis Pendaris, and recently he doesn't walk as much, but David Extravaganza Ultima, your gay father, is like very prominent in that category of designers alike and creates its own beautiful blazers and things like that. And I would like to see that again. I would like to see that. I would like to see other members of Ballroom purchasing things like that from our creative people like that, and things like
Mm.
that. So I've been in the process of using my cartoons, of reaching out to other photographers like Gerard Gaston, Winston Ebony, and Yuna, and people like that, and create like some sort of like, some sort of not some sort of like group of people that are artistically inclined, and one sharing with the other in terms of giving each other beautiful artwork with each other, and pieces of art, these pieces of things have wearable art and things like that, so that way we can remember each other, because tomorrow's not promised, and that
Very true.
if we could create an ideal utopia in which the artists in the ballroom community unify and create like a group or organization in which like the artists, the cartoonists, the photographers, the people that create wearable art can get together and create some sort of you know, union or something like that and help each other. That creativity, the things are boundless. It's limitless what we can do.
True, very true. And it's so interesting you say it too, because I do think, like, especially when I worked on Legendary, that was the
Mm.
thing is like, I mean, we tried to get obviously as many people as possible because we have so much talent in ballroom. And I feel like with this new generation, like, we have the power to make our own shows and our own things and,
Mhm,
have it come from us. And we already know that ballroom sets the tone for culture broadly. So it's just a
mhm,
no-brainer. Also, I love this idea of bringing back designer's delight. I was thinking about it, I'm like, you're right, because there's obviously best dress, there's
mhm,
labels, but yeah, it's not, to see what people can do. And I think it's interesting you mentioned it too, just because ballroom started with, like you said, Avis. I mean, I know the mothers, Avis, Dorian, Corey, and Pepper LaBeija, they were all
mhm,
seamstresses, right? Like they could
mhm.
actually make their own outfits and effects. And
Paris as well. Yeah. Hmm.
oh yeah, Paris Dupree, yes, that was part of the culture, and especially with the peels and reveals, that idea of, like you said, like the hat turning into something else, and so
Uh
on and so
huh.
forth. So,
That's what
I
made ballroom exciting for me. That made ballroom so exciting for me that it made me want to come back, and it made me want to miss school and things like that, or go to a friend's house and or sleep late because I couldn't go home to my parents at 2 and 3 in the morning because I was at a ball. And that's what made ball so exciting for me to return and return. And thanks to the commentators of Kenny Chanel, the late Kenny, I don't know if he's still with us, Kenny Chanel, and you know, oh God, I forgot his name. He was Eric Christian Bazaar and people like that, and Salvin to this day, and Jack too. These are people that make me want to come to balls because they make it exciting, and when I always see like commentating as like rap, so it's
Hmm.
like the modern rap, for the GLBT thing in ballroom. So like, to be seeing these new kids come out and to see Simba and all of them taking on those legacies, it's really motivating me, and it really makes me feel like I'm in it for the long haul. I'm in it for ride or
Hmm.
die, you know?
I love that. Yes, that is the way to be. What a great way to end, Milton. I
Yeah.
guess, well, here's the last thing I want to say. How can
Uh-huh.
people support your work, Milton, as an artist?
Right now, they can hit me up on social media through M
Mhm.
Garcia Ninja on Instagram, Milton Garcia Ninja on Facebook, and I'm in the process of starting revamping my website soon. So once I have that, I'm gonna announce that as well. But people can contact me through social media.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll make sure to have those links ready for people. And obviously for everyone watching, I really appreciate you checking out my work. Legends of Vogue, as I said, I launched a GoFundMe. I'm trying to reach 25K by the end of this month to be
Mm.
able to share incredible stories like Milton and also just, support my ability to keep putting out this work around the archives, our living archives, like our icons who are still with us and still turning it and still making incredible art. And yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who tuned in. Thank you so much, Milton. This
Thank
makes me so
you.
happy. This will be one of many future interviews because we'll definitely have to do a
Oh.
follow up. I feel like in the future I would love to obviously chat with you again because
Huh?
again, this has just been so enriching and
Thank
enlightening. So thank you very much, Milton, for being here. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm here for it. So, yeah, you got my number, you got my information. So, you can call me at the drop of a dime, and I'm here for it. So,
Thank you, Milton. All right, bye everybody.
bye, everybody. Thank you for tuning in.